Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Red. So, Kansas City ends up beating the Niners on their dream of a season. And I don't know. I look at that situation, I see how they came into the game, I see how the 49ers played for the entire year, and it just the hard part is that Kansas City has been a defensive powerhouse for so long, and they needed a little bit of offense, just a little more. They were like 4 years ago one of the better offenses for a time frame, but this time ended up being able to put it together with both sides of it, and that's why you win Super Bowls. So I am from the West Coast, in case you were wondering, and so Kansas City has always been that team that makes everyone mad when they play later on in the season because they beat us. So anyway, moving on to that, it is great that the football year it treated me well. Most people, particularly because of my location and everything else, were taking the 49ers, so I ended up making money even though I didn't want to see them lose. And um, with all the things that were available to me in order to make sure that this was a big year, considering the live wagering and changes that were available as far as markets go and lines and things inside that platform. Um, it was good overall. I'm talking not, you know, more than not seven-digit numbers, but we did good. So let's talk about what's coming up here. Let's talk about the college basketball. As I've mentioned previously, the uh, the games have been pretty balanced this year. I'm actually really surprised, and I really like it. I really like to see the competition. I like to see things that there's not just blowout teams. That's why I've never liked the Patriots. It's why when Golden State was super hot, you're like, yeah, okay. So now that there's more balance in the basketball, it's fun to watch, and that this year hasn't been any different for that. So I'm going to run through. Baylor is on top for both picks, AP 25 and also coaches. Right behind them is Gonzaga, also agreement on coaches and AP 25. Kansas and San Diego State. Louisville should be ranked higher. They're climbing again. Louisville is always really strong. I don't get why they have Kansas ahead of them, considering Kansas has had some better games and they pulled it together the last few weeks. Now, when you're talking about other small teams such as San Diego State, you got to look at Dayton. Dayton has always been an offensive crazy powerhouse. Dayton totals are usually in the 150s. In a college basketball game, to be in the 150s, you got to be good. At least at shooting. Defense, not so much, so they'll probably fall in the first, couple of rounds of the March Madness, which is right around the corner. I love this time of the year for books. Because you always have random games that people bet on differently no matter what. You don't have the Sunday stack, as I call it, where people come in and they lay all their money on a big favorite or one team that's in their area or their city that they all like, and they're going to bet with their heart on it anyway. So you get the college basketball, and everybody goes to different colleges. Everybody sees things as they're growing up that make them think, hey, that's I like them. That was my hometown for a minute when I was transferred there, or this or that, right? So they root for those teams. And that's why. It's a balance sheet with just volume, and I win on the juice. So I'm happy with that, and I'm happy with the situation overall for this time frame right now. Considering also Florida State in there ranked 8, okay? Maryland 9. Maryland will probably go to the final, like I don't know. I don't want to say Final Four. We'll go to the eights. That's what I think Maryland will do, honestly. Some of the disappointments: Kentucky, Michigan State, LSU, who did knock off somebody. It was a big upset game. You can look that up in the histories if you want. Um, and Arizona. Okay, Arizona. They are climbing back, granted, but they were so good for a lot of years. And I guess, drafts and whatever else, it ends up happening that way, where the seniors go and either get into the NBA or they graduate and they can't play anymore unless you get the 5 years or the 6 years of the guys that come back for their masters and they continue to play, I guess. But that's the breakdown that's going on right now for the college basketball, and it is something that I'm going to be watching closely over the next few weeks because I want to make sure that I'm not letting myself or leaving myself vulnerable for certain situations. And what I mean by that is any parlays or anything that's coming in there that are going to be mismatched spreads. If somebody doesn't pay attention to certain things in these cases where they see, let's say for example, uh, just because of their rank right now, and the point spreads are going to be off for games like Michigan State and Iowa and Kentucky. If they go play anybody who's a mediocre team or sub higher in the ranks, like Dayton for example, they're probably going to win, and the spreads will be wrong. And that's just because of regular point spreads. The lines makers in Vegas or wherever they're getting the original start from, the opener as it's called in the industry, sometimes don't take into account the fact that most of these programs have depth. So we'll keep moving on, and we'll look at that as far as it goes. The rest of the settings and things that I've been trying to cover uh, for the other weeks, like I said, nothing higher than a 250 on a parlay. Sometimes I'll cut it down, even in this case, to like 150, just because if you're going to do more than 2 or 3 teams, a $150 parlay could pay out big money. Just the other week, I had a guy come in for $340 on a parlay and hit for 19K. He lost it all back, but it was not a fun day to see somebody come in and hit something like that. So here we are, checking my limits, man. Always watching those things. So if you do have any questions, concerns, or likes, subscribes, or any of those kinds of things, please let us know. I'm sure that there's a subscribe button in your YouTube or something that you can follow us on, and we'll try to answer questions if anyone does hear this. Have a great week, and may the odds always be in your favor.